Olá, boa noite. Weasel Biribo, hoje com o vídeo 5 de Gabriel Knight, Sins of the Fathers. Ontem o Gabriel conseguiu de um pintor no parque o desenho completo juntando os pedaços daqueles desenhos achados ao lado dos corpos dos assassinatos voodoo. O pintor ficou bem assustado quando entregou o desenho para ele e o desenho agora aparece no nosso inventário como VV. Não sei por que esse nome, não sei de onde, o que significa. Gabriel falou com a Malia Gad, disfarçado de Mosley, mas ela naturalmente não acreditou em nada daquilo. Mesmo assim, ele conseguiu as informações de que ela é sozinha e reclusa, evita conviver em sociedade, porque mesmo sendo super rica e podendo fazer parte da alta sociedade, ela é discriminada por causa da cor, né, e da origem. Sabe que ela administra a fortuna Gad e que também não acredita na ligação dos assassinatos com as crenças e os rituais voodoo. Dentro do jogo ontem mudamos para o dia 3, em que fiquei devendo a tradução do texto de passagem, né? Tentei traduzir ali rapidamente, mas não deu tempo. Ali, então, nessa passagem é dito: chamado à fonte do conhecimento, corri lá para conspirar. Mas, na cidade dos mortos, encontrei o que de verdade desejava. Para os próximos dias, atendendo a uma sugestão aqui no canal, eu já antecipei, peguei os textos, já fiz a tradução e conforme forem surgindo as passagens de um dia para o outro, eu já tenho pronto e já leio uma tradução correta para vocês. O Gabriel, ainda no nosso jogo de ontem, no terceiro dia, foi à delegacia e viu Mosley interrogando o apavorado Crash. E o Crash, apesar de saber de coisas dos assassinatos voodoo, só tremia e repetia que não podia dizer nada porque iam acabar com ele, independentemente de alguém informar, eles sabiam de tudo e iriam acabar com ele, ao saberem que ele esteve na delegacia. Ele não chegou a dizer quem eram, né? Então, ele está preso, mas vai ter que ser solto no dia seguinte, porque afinal não tem acusação nenhuma contra ele. O Gabriel não conseguiu falar com a Madame Casanu, vai precisar arranjar algum estratagema para entrar e falar com ela. Na praça, com a vidente ou pretensa vidente Madame Lorelai, conseguiu uma escama de boa, uma cobra usada em rituais voodoo, para tentar comparar com a outra que ele já tem e que ele conseguiu no local do crime, né? No crime do lago. E nesse dia 3 ainda do jogo, ao meio-dia, haverá na faculdade local uma palestra sobre religiões africanas. Ele viu isso no jornal e para lá ele vai então para acompanhar, ver se acrescenta alguma coisa ao conhecimento dele para o livro, né? E para a curiosidade que ele já tem também em relação aos assassinatos voodoo. Então, só recordando, estamos no dia 3 do jogo, com 93 pontos dos 362 que estão em jogo. Então, vamos tirar o carão da frente e voltar ao jogo no dia 3, logo depois da frustrada tentativa de falar com Madame Casanu. Desculpe que eu bati no microfone aqui, deve ter feito um barulhão. Vamos lá. Temos que ir para a faculdade então, né? Ela deve ser fora do centro, presumo. É aqui, Universidade de Tulane.
It looks like the lecture is just starting. Voodoo is the tribal religion of Africa, but the name Voodoo is actually a banner heading, under which resides an entire body of distinct tribal belief systems. The word voodoo may sound familiar to you. What is known in the States as voodoo is actually an amalgamation of African religious systems, voodoo, and European religions, primarily Catholicism. All of these subcults of African voodoo have certain things in common. The most important is the worship of a pantheon of spirits, instead of the single deity that the Christian and Muslim systems have. Some of these spirits are elementals. Some relate to specific tasks or places. Some represent important tribal leaders who have died. This spirit worship is what makes voodoo so easily adaptable. With all these spirits, it's no problem to add a few more. Say, for example, the Virgin Mary. At the height of tribal Africa, warfare was common. One tribe would conquer another, and the Laveau, important in the conqueror's tribal system, would be adopted readily into the conquered tribe's Laveau pantheon. In this way, many of the voodoo cults spread and mingled throughout tribal Africa, enriching the belief system and causing innumerable offshoots. The basis for the voodoo religion seems to be as old as man himself. It has much in common with many early pagan practices: animal totems, sympathetic magic, elemental spirits in the trees, the heavens, the bodies of the sick. Africa is believed by many to be the cradle of the human race. Some of the voodoo Laveau may be as old as the Garden of Eden itself. We still can't explain some of the real power of these primal religions. And note, I said primal, not primitive. There are African Bokors who baffle our scientists with their supernatural powers. Now, let's discuss the elements of voodoo.
Fascinating guy.
In voodoo, the spirits are called the Laveau. During a voodoo ceremony, celebrants are possessed by the Laveau. This is called being ridden. The human worshipper is seen as a horse, and the Laveau as the divine horseman. A person being ridden by a Laveau takes on the characteristics of that spirit and becomes, in effect, merely a vessel for the more powerful entity. Some of the older original Africa Laveau include Dambala, the great serpent god, Ezuli, the mistress of love, Papa Nebo, or Gede, the lord of death, Awe, the spirit of water, Legba, spirit of the crossroads, and the cruelest and most dangerous, Ogun Badagri, the lord of destruction.
I gotta get more sleep at night.
Tribe-specific Laveau can have as much or more power as the more widely worshipped Laveau. For instance, a particular tribe might revere highly the Laveau of an ancestor who was a legendary hunter or politician. Voodoo temples are called houndfors. Their priests, houngan or bokors, their priestesses, Mama Laveau. In a voodoo houndfor, there's a ritual circle marked by a center pole called a poteau meton. During ritual conclaves, initiates dance under the supervision of a bokor and a Mama Laveau, or head priestess. The use of totems, or animal masks and markings, was not uncommon in the original African ceremonies. Now, though, all but the oldest sects have abandoned this practice. Ritual objects used during the conclaves included the ritual gourd, or asan, the ritual knife, or kubasa,
That knife gives me the chills.
the ritual whip, or fouetcache, and the ritual coffin, or seke madule. These items are often optional, called for by the Mama Laveau for specific magical rituals. The Mama Laveau is the most powerful figure in any voodoo sect. Voodoo is a truly matriarchal system. Even the Bokor knows his power is limited. The Mama Laveau is the supreme woman. She goes out of her house at night, sees many things, and tries to get butterflies, and at night again she sees other things, including fireflies.
Firelight. Gabriel?
What? Can't see.
Gabriel, get in.
Can't. It's too small for me.
You must get in, Gabriel.
It's not mine. Too small.
Hide, Gabriel. Hide.
No! Let me out! Help!
Young man, the lecture is over.
Oh my God. Sorry.
Eu não estava dormindo, estava só descansando os olhos.
Dr. Hartridge is sharp-eyed and even sharper-tongued. When he condescends to look at Gabriel at all, it is with a dismissive glare.
Mas finalmente agora vai poder perguntar do Ogum Badagri. Que a minha filha, quando eu joguei a primeira vez, dizia, eu sempre tenho a impressão de que ele vai falar Ogum Badagrum. Não sei por que ela achava isso, acho que era só para rimar. Mas ela era pequena, né? Tinha só 35 anos naquela época.
Are you a student?
No. My name is Knight. Gabriel Knight.
Well, you've already interrupted and slept through my lecture, Mr. Knight. I hope you have something worthwhile to do here. If you figure it out, let me know.
Tenho que perguntar tudo, né? O senhor é um especialista de religião africana.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
You already sat through my lecture on the subject, Mr. Knight. Perhaps next time you could stay awake and learn something.
Se ficar acordado, vai saber de tudo. Assassinatos do voodoo, ele não deve saber. Serpentes no voodoo, cobras.
Do you know anything about snakes?
I'm not a zoologist, Mr. Knight, but I know all I care to about reptiles.
Véspera de São João.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
It's June 23rd, the feast day of St. John the Baptist. But June 23rd has been a sacred day since the earliest times. Ancient sun worshippers used to roll a flaming wheel down a hill to celebrate the sun's descent on that day.
A burning wheel. Huh.
Máscaras de animais.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
As I said in my lecture, which I assume you actually listened to, is that animal masks, totems, are used extensively in most African voodoo religions.
New Orleans.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
I find it interesting to see the occasional fragment of voodoo practices in the everyday culture of New Orleans.
What else can you tell me about New Orleans?
The Catholic Church has always dominated in New Orleans, and its imagery, in turn, has dominated New Orleans voodoo.
What else can you tell me about New Orleans?
If there's more you wish to know, perhaps you should read my books.
Leia meus livros, é. Marie Laveau, você sabe também.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
While I find the colloquial bastardizations of voodoo somewhat interesting, from a sheerly intellectual point of view, there's not a lot of relation between people like Laveau and true voodoo practices.
Ele estuda mais o voodoo como religião africana mesmo, não vai ver como ele se desenvolveu nos Estados Unidos. Vevés.
Do you know anything about Veves?
If you'd taken notes during my lecture, you wouldn't have to ask.
Você sabe que eu sei, porque eu falei na conferência.
Tell me about Dambala.
Dambala is one of the major Rada Loa, also known as Dambala Wado. He is an ancient Dahomean rain god, often represented as a large boa constrictor. Dambala is the most powerful and most violent of the Rada Loa. The Rada Loa are typically benevolent, as opposed, say, to the Patro Loa. He is still worshipped heavily in Haiti. And when voodoo first started in New Orleans, the early conclaves were reportedly based on the worship of the great zombie, the great serpent Dambala.
A serpente poderosa.
Tell me more about Dambala.
I have extensive courses in the Loa running next semester. Perhaps you should take one of those, Mr. Knight.
Ogum Badagrum.
Tell me about Ogun Badagri.
Ogun Badagri is one of the Patrolois. The Patrolois are much more violent than the Radalois. Some people believe the Patrolois originated in Haiti, but I have found some evidence that the Patrolois were African as well, though worshipped only by a small Voodoo tribe, and a very bloody one.
Ogum Badagrum.
Tell me more about Ogun Badagri.
He is a chief nasty, Mr. Knight. He is the spirit of war and destruction.
Assassinatos voodoo, ouviu falar?
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
I've read about them in the papers. I must admit to some interest. But according to the newspapers, the voodoo aspect is faked, so I haven't really pursued it. You know how Americans, especially Hollywood, treat voodoo. I'm sure there are many so-called practitioners out there that have no idea what they're doing or the power they're playing with.
Cabri Sancor.
Do you know what Capri Sankar means?
Cabri Sancour? Yes, I do. It's a Haitian term, I believe. It's French, and literally translates as goat without horns.
As in a female goat?
No, as in a human sacrifice. Sacrifices in voodoo are usually of the animal variety. Chickens, bulls, goats. If the gods demand a goat without horns, it means a human being.
Então, Cabri Sancor é uma oferenda humana. Bode sem chifre.
What was that translation for Capri Sankar again?
It's French, and literally translates as goat without horns.
Sacrifício humano.
Tell me more about human sacrifice.
It's very rare. Most voodoo practices do not include human sacrifice as a matter of record, but it is theoretically possible, if that's what the gods demand. For example, one of the chants I had translated for me from a Haitian ritual went like this. Mistress Ezuli, come and aid us. If a cock is demanded, we will give it. If a bull will suffice, behold it. But if a goat without horns is required for sacrifice, oh, where will we find one? Ezuli is the gentlest of Laveau, so they call on her for mercy. But I have seen grown and powerful Houngan tremble before possession by one of the more violent Laveau, such as Papa Nebo. Clearly, they are afraid that something of the sort will be ordered, or that Laveau will simply take it for themselves.
Sacrifício humano.
Tell me more about human sacrifice.
I wouldn't dwell on it. Most voodoo sects probably haven't seen a human sacrifice for several generations.
O senhor mesmo.
Tell me about yourself.
All right, Mr. Knight. I'm 35, a fully tenured professor at this university, as well as a fellow at Cambridge. My doctorate was obtained at Syracuse. Yes, Syracuse, in religious studies. I'm an agnostic, but I find human belief systems fascinating. I specialize in African religions because I grew up there. My father was a Protestant missionary. And I am heterosexual, when I practice sex at all, which isn't very often. Any other questions?
Oh, no.
Não.
Fine.
Cara, é tão sincero e tão profundo, tão técnico, responde tudo mesmo. Vou perguntar de novo?
I'd really like to know more about you.
There have been several articles written about me, Mr. Knight, as well as blurbs on my book jackets. If you want a biography, read.
Conversar.
Your lecture was terrific.
Oh, you think so? You were snoring so loud I didn't think you'd heard it.
Não, estava só descansando os olhos. E treinando as cordas vocais.
You must travel a lot.
Yes, to Africa mainly.
I'm very interested in voodoo myself right now.
How nice for you.
Cabri Sancor, ele só vai dar a
What was that
tradução.
translation for?
It's French.
Tem que mostrar as coisas para ele, né? Essa daqui.
Can you tell me anything about this?
No, I've never seen those symbols. Therefore, they're probably meaningless.
Really? Are you sure?
I'm never wrong, Mr. Knight. Therefore, sure. is not in my vocabulary.
Esses eram os desenhos da tumba, né? Escama da serpente.
Can you tell me anything about this?
No, I'm afraid I can't.
O véu não tem sentido de perguntar. O VV sim, o tijolo não. A outra serpente também não vai adiantar. Vamos ver se ele diz se essa foto tem a ver com rituais voodoo que ele conhece.
Is there anything you can tell me about the voodoo aspects of this photograph?
This is a serious voodoo ritual. Nasty stuff.
In what way?
Let's see. I can't make out much detail from this photograph, except for the corpse, of course, but the wound, the face, and what little I can see of the ritual paraphernalia, it reminds me of certain black voodoo practices. Very rare. I've never witnessed them myself, you understand.
Really? Interesting. Thanks.
Essa foi uma informação bem útil. É o primeiro que diz que parece um ritual sério verdadeiro. Vamos ver se o volante da Moonbeam.
Can you tell me anything about this?
No, I'm afraid I can't.
Nem se interessou na sacerdotisa. Então, o que resta é o VV reconstruído. Esse vai interessar para ele.
Can you tell me anything about this?
Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. Mind if I copy this?
Be my guest.
Great. I'll be right back.
Sim, talvez agora ele possa perguntar de Black
Here you
Voodoo.
go. You know, this is a fascinating veve. You must tell me all about its origin.
Actually, I was hoping you'd tell me. Can you figure out anything about it from the symbols?
Well, some. That's why I wanted a copy. I want to research the design myself.
Have you heard of the voodoo murders?
No, you're kidding. Really? Then the voodoo is authentic. The newspapers are wrong. Boy, are they wrong.
You think this veve is authentic?
Authentic? Mr. Knight, that's like asking if the Mona Lisa is a painting. Tell you what, I'll look into these symbols myself and see what I can learn about the sect that made this. I'll give you a call when I have more information. You are associated with the police, aren't you?
Absolutely. But I'm undercover. You can contact me at St. George's Bookshop in the quarter.
All right. Now, I'd like to get started on this, if you don't mind.
Aqui não tem mais nada. Vamos ver se pode perguntar outra
Mind if I
coisa.
pick your brain?
Not if it will get you out of my lecture hall.
VV e Voodoo Negro.
Do you know anything about veves?
I told you I would research it, Mr. Knight. When I have anything concrete, I'll let you know.
Sim, vai investigar o VV e depois vai ligar para livraria. E sobre Voodoo Negro,
Tell me what you mean by black voodoo.
Well, like any religion, the beliefs can tend toward positive or negative ends, can be used for good or evil. Christianity, for example, has its doppelganger, Satanism. Anytime you attempt to set up an icon to explain evil, you invite some warped mind to worship it. The same is true of voodoo. There are those who are drawn by and desire personal power from the darker, bloodier Laveau.
Can you give me an example of black voodoo?
All right. There is a very secret, very dark cult in Haiti called the Culte des Morts, Cult of the Dead. Their primary Laveau is Papa Nebo, Laveau of the cemetery. They practice a particularly disgusting form of necromancy, magic using the dead. They dig up corpses and use their decaying bodies for various spells and curses.
Can you give me another example of black voodoo?
In tribal Africa, there were and still are black bokors, shaman bent toward the dark, who not only practice necromancy, but also human sacrifice.
Is there anything else you can tell me about Black Voodoo?
Only that if it's being practiced in this city, none of us are safe.
Por hora, acho que é
A
isso. Né?
projection screen dominates the front of the hall. There's a PA speaker on the wall.
É, alto-falante.
The door to Hartridge's office is locked. Gabriel's in one of the lecture halls at Tulane University.
Pódio.
The podium, Hartridge's throne. Gabriel isn't in the mood to give a lecture.
Gabriel não tá aí para dar uma conferência.
Gabriel isn't in the mood to give a lecture.
Então acho que vamos embora, né? Já que temos que esperar.
I'll be going.
Oh, do keep in touch.
Ah, chegamos nos 100 pontos. Aqui, 100 dos 362. Mansão Guedes, será que adianta? Acho que não, né? Sem nenhuma novidade para lá. Madame Casanu sem um estratagema também não adianta. Cemitério. A loja de encantamentos lá, talvez. Os termos agora que o... E no museu também. Os termos que o professor acrescentou na nossa pesquisa.
Mind if I ask you a few questions?
Ask what you want. I answer what I want.
Pergunte o que quiser que eu responderei o que eu quero. Cabri Sancor, você já disse que não falou isso, né? Mas falou.
I found out what Cabri Sankal means. How did you know about human sacrifice?
I never said them words, monsieur. You must have heard them from someone else.
É, foi um professor que me falou isso assim do nada, e o Bibiu que ficou falando besteira no meu ouvido. Voodoo negro.
Do you know anything about Black Voodoo?
Black voodoo? No such thing. I tell you for sure.
Não existe nada assim. Ogum Badagrum.
Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
Don't talk like that around here, man.
Veva.
Do you know anything about Veves?
Like the ones in the voodoo rituals they do for the tourists.
Right.
They curiosities, no? This a curio shop.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting.
Dambala.
Have you ever heard of Dambala?
Dambala is an African legend about a great serpent. Folklore, that's all.
Só folclore. A Willie Jr. ele não quer vender. Aliás, vende, mas eu não tenho dinheiro. Conversa.
So, this is a voodoo store, huh?
Voodoo? No, man. This a curio shop. The things you see here from local folklore. None of it real, I tell you for sure.
What about all these magic oils and powders you're selling? Aren't they a part of voodoo?
Read the label, man. We make no claims. Sold as curio only. It mean what it say, no? These are novelties, not voodoo.
So, do you get many tourists in here?
We, all the time. They want to buy a bottle of money-drawn oil or wang a bag to take home with them.
How's business?
About like always.
I'm a businessman too. I own a bookstore here in the quarter.
I don't really care, me. I got a store to run.
Have you always lived in New Orleans?
My papa and his papa and his papa, all the way back to the days of Marie Laveau, we've been living here.
So, does any of this stuff actually work?
You crazy, man? These are just curios, novelties for the tourists.
Nice weather we're having.
Don't bother me. Can't you see I'm busy? St. John Eve coming, I got to be ready.
Mostrar o Vevé pra ele.
Do you recognize this pattern?
Don't look familiar at all, monsieur.
escama de cobra, será? Acho que não, né?
Do you know anything about snake scales?
I got some snake root and snake powder.
É, já respondeu isso da
Powder
outra
and
vez.
wholesale. I don't handle snakes. I don't like them at all.
Não gosto de serpentes e não sei de nada delas. Então vamos embora. Que esse cara não nos deu ponto nenhum. Dr. John vai dar. Ou vai dar pontos pra gente, ou vai
Hello, Dr. John.
matar a
Glad you
gente.
could return to us, Mr. Knight.
Não, ele é muito elegante pra isso. Vamos pegar uma escama da serpente.
That doesn't seem to work that way. The snake is too far away.
E perto você não quer chegar, né?
The python is quite dangerous. I would stay back if I were you.
Thanks for the advice.
Ah, sequei madulé.
The Voodoo Shrine is filled with items that both fascinate Gabriel and also make his
Vamos
skin
identificar as coisas da palestra. O ataúde é sequei madulé.
Professor Hartridge called this a Sakei Madule.
A cruz ele não falou nada, caveira não falou nada, boneco voodoo também não. Aqui o totem vai ter um nome.
According to Hartridge, that pole in the center of the room is called a potomatan.
Potomita. Eu fiquei falando junto, né?
According to Hartridge, that pole in the center of the room is called a potomatan.
Potomita. O chicote.
Don't the Voodoo call a ritual whip a fouet cache?
Fouet cache. O interruptor, ele não falou na palestra. Ah, a adaga aqui.
That knife looks familiar. Probably from Hartridge's slides.
What did he call it? Kubasa?
Kubasa. Tinha mais coisa lá? Não, né? Que ele falou na palestra. Vamos conversar com o Dr. John, então.
Could I ask you some more questions?
Of course. I also find our dialogue stimulating.
Eu também gostei muito do nosso diálogo. Véspera de São João.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
It is one of the important ceremonial nights in Voodoo.
What else can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I am afraid I do not know the origins of St. John's Eve. I only know that it was a night of ritual long before Voodoo came to New Orleans.
Caprice encore.
Do you know what Caprice encore means?
I fear my French is not all it should be, Mr. Knight.
Sacrifícios humanos. Agora que você sabe, podia perguntar diretamente, né?
Have you ever heard of Damballa?
Of course. It is one of the Loa.
What can you tell me about the Loa Damballa?
Damballa is a snake Loa. It originated in Africa, and is also worshipped heavily in Haiti, I believe.
Do you worship Damballa?
Mr. Knight, in Voodoo, all of the Loa are given their due respect.
What else can you tell me about the Loa Damballa?
I am afraid I have little else to say about that subject.
Ogum Badagrum.
Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
I do not believe so.
Isn't he one of the Loa?
Perhaps. I am not familiar with some of the more obscure Haitian and African Loa.
Are you sure you don't know anything about Ogun Badagri?
Quite sure, Mr. Knight.
Vevas.
Do you know anything about Veves?
I believe they have something to do with Haitian Voodoo. But that is not really my area.
Do you know anything else about Veves?
I am afraid I have little else to say about that subject.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
I used to have some antique African totem masks, but they were on the point of disintegration, so I removed them.
Eu tinha máscaras, mas tive que me desfazer delas porque estavam muito velhas e desintegrando.
Are you sure you can't educate me further about animal masks?
Unfortunately, I do not know much about totem masks. The practice was more African than American, and that is not my area of expertise.
Okay, thanks.
Ele é especialista no voodoo que veio para a América, não do voodoo original africano.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
That sort of viewpoint makes my work very difficult, Mr. Knight. If there are one or two ignorant believers, that is none of my concern. And I do not care to promote a Hollywood interpretation of voodoo by discussing it.
You really don't know anything about black voodoo practices?
I believe I already indicated my intolerance for that line of inquiry.
O senhor mesmo.
Tell me about yourself.
What more can I tell you?
Malia Guedes. Mas por que ele vai perguntar? Alguém falou alguma coisa? Ela falou dele? Acho que sim.
Do you know Malia Getty?
Should I?
She referred me to your museum.
Many have read about our museum in the newspapers, Mr. Knight.
That's a good point.
Ela falou do museu dele.
Actually, I can't think of a thing.
Then let us discuss something else.
Então vamos falar sobre essa escama aqui.
Why would Dr. John be interested in that scale?
Por que ele estaria interessado nessa escama? Nem nesse véu. No VV, sim. Mas ele vai dizer que não, claro.
Does this pattern look familiar to you?
Where did you get that?
You do recognize it then?
I have never seen it before in my life.
Are you sure about this pattern?
I am sure, Mr. Knight.
Onde o senhor conseguiu esse símbolo que eu nunca vi na minha vida? O código voodoo.
Do these symbols mean anything to you?
No, they look like nonsense to me. Where did you get them, if I might inquire?
I saw them scribbled somewhere. Just graffiti, I guess.
I see. By the way, I forgot to warn you, Mr. Knight. The local cemeteries are quite dangerous. Buggers, vandals. I would avoid going there alone if I were you.
Really? Thanks for the advice.
Já fez uma ameaça aí. Não vá sozinho nos cemitérios que são perigosos aqui. Acho que não tem mais nada para perguntar. Vamos embora então. Mas não pôde nem perguntar de ser queimadulê, nem de nada que o outro ensinou ali. Agora ele veio do outro lado para cá. Mas já pode ir no confessionário? Pode.
A meshed window provides access to the confessional from the priest's booth. The panel behind the mesh window moves from the other side.
May I help you, my child?
Uma bênção, perguntas, uma confissão. Não, confessar.
I'd like to make a confession.
All right, if it'll make you feel better.
Pensamentos
I've had
impulsos.
impure thoughts about a woman I met.
Impure thoughts? You mean thoughts of sexual relations?
You could say that, but worse than what you mean.
Worse? You mean extreme sexual relations?
Well, not involving animals or anything.
Oh, well. Perhaps we should just leave it at that. Pray for forgiveness and say 10 rosaries. Is there anything else?
Algo mais claro, a lista inteira e mais
I've done some
repetição.
pretty rotten things to my friend Mosley.
Rotten? What do you mean?
Practical jokes, insults, among other things.
I see. Are you sorry?
Well,
Pray for forgiveness and say 3 rosaries. Is there anything else?
Assistente sem paga? Não paga a Grace.
I haven't paid my assistant for 3 months.
Have you had the money?
Nope.
Sounds like a matter for the courts, son, not the church. Is there anything else?
Isso é para a justiça do trabalho. Eu sou uma pessoa egoísta, uma desculpa geral, mulherengo.
I've had a lot of women, Father.
A lot? More than 10?
Yes, Father.
More than 20?
Yes, Father.
More than 40?
Yes, Father.
Son, I don't think this is a matter for a priest. I think you need a good therapist.
If we're counting therapists, then I'm up to at least, let's see here, count out the 1 and, this might take a while.
My son, I'm afraid my lunch break is coming on about now. Pray for forgiveness and say 20 rosaries. On second thought, when you finish the math, say that many rosaries.
Gabriel hears him leave the confessional.
I should probably add 1 more rosary for that while I'm at it. I've been a bad boy.
A meshed window
Tem buraco aqui.
There's a knothole about the size of a quarter in the wood paneling on that wall.
Vamos entrar lá agora.
I've
Pra...
always wondered how the other half lives.
Parte do
The
sacerdote.
priest's side of the confessional is made of well-oiled wood. There's also a box under the shelf on this side. There's a box under the shelf of the priest's confessional. Inside the box, Gabriel finds a priest's collar and some oil used for blessing. Inside the box, Gabriel finds a priest's collar. That oil is for holy purposes, not the sort of thing Gabriel would want to use it for.
O azeite é para coisas santas, não para o que ele está pensando em usar. A gola de padre.
Inside the box, Gabriel finds... Gabriel can't use the collar while it's in the box.
Não dá para usar quando está dentro da caixa.
You never know when a priest's collar will come in handy.
Nunca se sabe quando um colarinho de padre poderá ser útil. Já que reclamaram aqui que eu não olhei pelo buraco, então vamos ver se dá para olhar pelo buraco. Vai ver o padre se trocando lá.
There's a knothole about the size of a quarter in the wood paneling on that wall.
Ah, quer dizer então usar. Usar.
The knothole doesn't seem to operate that way.
Não funciona dessa forma, então ele não olha, ou pegar ou olhar, e se ele olha, ele só vê por fora.
The knothole is part of the paneling.
The drummer is busy. Bem, agora nós temos um colarinho de padre.
Hey, Grace, here I am.
Oh boy, party time.
Hora da festa. Ver se tem novidades com a Grace.
Got a minute, Grace?
What's up?
Solicitar investigação. Ogum Badagrum.
Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
Ugh, no. Makes my skin crawl, though.
Dambala.
Have you ever heard of Dambala?
No, sorry.
Veves.
Do you know anything about veves?
Not a clue. Sorry.
Ritual patterns used in voodoo.
Fascinating. I can't help you out, though.
Voodoo Negro.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
Black voodoo? Ugh, now what are you getting yourself into?
Nothing you need to know about, do you?
I know there are dark forms of any major religion. Where there's a yin, there's a yang.
Speaking of yin and yang...
But no, I don't know anything really about voodoo, dark or otherwise, sorry.
Nem negro, nem de nenhuma outra cor.
Are you sure you don't know anything about black voodoo?
You are desperate. I told you I can't help you.
Mensagens.
Do you have messages for me?
Nope, none right now.
Por hora nenhuma. Solicitar investigação.
Could you do some research for me?
Sure, what?
Investigar esse desenho Vevé.
I have a pattern I need you to research.
How interesting. What is it?
It's a reconstruction of the tracings they found around the murder victims. The ones done in flour and blood.
Yuck. You shouldn't carry this kind of thing around. Who knows what these symbols mean?
Well, wear your evil banishing gloves if you want, but check it out for me, would you?
I'll see what I can find out. Anything else?
I can't think of anything.
Alguma coisa para mostrar. Colarinho de padre, o véu. O desenho já passou para ela. O código voodoo já mostrou?
Gabriel can't see a way to use it.
Já. E já teve essa resposta. Então... Agora ele tem um colarinho de padre e uma senhora muito católica que ele tem que entrar na casa dela com algum estratagema.
I might be able to use this black shirt. I'll take this hair gel. You never know when you'll need a touch-up.
A glostora, gel para cabelo, né? A camisa negra e a coisa de sacerdote. Coisa de sacerdote com a... disfarce de sacerdote, ó. A camisa preta com o colarinho de padre e o gel pro cabelo. Pensa, Su, se você tem essas três coisas, como que você enganaria uma senhora católica para entrar na casa dela? Ah, não, tava lá mesmo, é no bairro francês, não é nos arredores da cidade. Vamos lá enganar as velhinhas. Não, mas não tinha que se vestir primeiro, né, cara?
Yes? Who is it?
Wrong house. Never mind.
Fine, good day.
It looks like my priest outfit is complete.
Sim, mas se não vai pôr,
Gabriel stands at the door of an old quarter residence. The neighborhood is a little shabby. Tall windows flank the front of the mansion.
se ele tocar, vai perguntar. Não dá pra... Ah.
Yes? Who is it?
Ah, tá. Eu tenho que clicar nele próprio. Estou escrevendo um artigo sobre voodoo.
Hi, I'm doing an article on voodoo, and I heard that you are...
I'm a good Catholic young man. Take your evil influence elsewhere.
But I just have a few questions.
I can feel the evil eye. Go away.
Eu sou uma boa católica e não vou falar nada de voodoo. Não quero nem saber disso. Que mentirosa. É, tem que clicar nele e vestir isso daqui, é mesmo. Eu tinha esquecido disso. Ainda bem que os aficionados do canal lembram de tudo.
All right, but this is private.
Yes? Who is it?
Padre McLaughlin. Joe McLaughlin, grande guitarrista.
It's Father McLaughlin to see you.
Father McLaughlin, you say? You must be new in the parish. I'm so pleased to meet you, Father. Do come in.
Thank you, my child.
Please be seated, Father.
Thank you.
Now, what can I do for you?
The painting behind the couch is a Madonna and Child. Madame's parlor is full of carefully dusted and polished relics of her past. It's a large antique cabinet. It's probably worth something. The plant looks healthy, despite Gabriel's vague impression that Castro makes great use of it. An old table lamp with a fringed shade gives off what little light there is in the parlor. The sofa is velvet, and it is wearing nearly as much of Madame Casanau's face powder as Madame is herself. Madame seems to like candles. Gabriel wonders if these too are specialties of Mr. Walker's shop. Madame finds comfort in these iconic images, it seems. A low wooden coffee table sits in front of the sofa. The tea service has been polished recently. Madame uses it with her Creole sisters, perhaps. There's an old-fashioned jewelry box on the coffee table.
Que bagunça, com monte de folha jogada no chão aqui.
The upholstered chair is less comfortable than it looks. It's a painting of a pretty young lady in old-fashioned clothes.
Madam in younger days?
Good heavens, no, Father.
Não, não sou eu, jovenzinha, né? E nem aqui também. Acho que já é hora de conversar, né, Jaquim? Ah, tem o Castro ali pra ver ainda. Castro.
Castro, cute as a flea on a piece of fruit.
Tão lindo quanto uma pulga na fruta.
Nice doggy. Good Castro.
E ela nem perguntou como é que ele sabia o nome.
Madame Casino looks fragile and pale under a thick layer of face powder. If Gabriel's not mistaken, she's a slice short of a loaf.
Do you mind if I ask you a few questions, my child?
Of course not, mon père.
Vamos começar com... Não, vamos começar com o Gumba da Grum. Mas só tem quase pergunta de voodoo. Perguntar dela mesma.
Tell me about yourself.
Me? I am Creole. My family has been in New Orleans for over 200 years. Real New Orleanians are French, you see. These days, the city is overrun with people with no heritage at all. No offense, Father, but it's true. But the French, naturellement, will always be the true blood of New Orleans.
Ela tem orgulho do sangue francês e até xingou os outros lá. Só depois lembrou que ele deve ser irlandês, né?
Tell me about yourself.
Well, Father, I don't know what else to say.
Agora vamos ter que começar a falar das coisas. Véspera de São João. Não. New Orleans.
What can you tell me about New Orleans?
The only true New Orleans are of French origin, you know. My family were among the original settlers of New Orleans. They came here from France. The Creole society used to be so gay in New Orleans. Now, it barely hangs on by its fingernails.
Véspera de São João.
What can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
Oh, St. John's Eve, mais oui. I used to love the St. John's Eve Mass at St. Louis Cathedral. Of course, it is also a night of great wickedness, worse than All Hallows Eve. They will corrupt anything, Father.
They? They who?
Oh, you know.
Você já sabe. Véspera de São João.
What else can you tell me about St. John's Eve?
I don't think I should say any more about that.
Só que eu tenho que perguntar primeiro o Cabri Sancor, para depois ela abrir o jogo com tudo? Ou se eu perguntar daquilo vai... Marie Laveau.
Do you know anything about Marie Laveau?
Oh, her. I could tell you about her. Voodoo Queen? Ah! My great-grandmother was an acolyte of Marie Laveau. She knows the truth about her.
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
No, I won't say anything more. Not to you, Father. I'm sure you mean well, but you are an outsider.
Oh, só porque ele é forasteiro não vai falar?
Tell me more about Marie Laveau.
She was only a front for the real evildoers, Father. And that's the truth about Marie Laveau.
Poxa, ela era a maldade disfarçada de mulher.
What can you tell me about voodoo?
People think I'm just a foolish old woman, but I know the things they do. My family's been in New Orleans since 1750, so I know more than most. Voodoo people are all over the city, in the shops, everywhere. They'll curse you like that, and most people don't even notice. Spit on your bread at the bakery. Take strands of your hair at the store when you try on clothes. Oh, you have to be so careful. But I know their ways, so I can protect myself. I know how to use the magic too, and I can counteract their evil spells.
Tell me more about voodoo in New Orleans.
It's just plain evil. It's dangerous to even discuss it.
Serpentes, isso. Cobras.
Do you know anything about snakes?
Snakes, they're evil creatures. Did you know that evil people can send them into your dreams? They can. That's why I never sleep.
Right, thanks.
Ela não dorme para não sonhar com serpente que os maldosos mandam pro sonho dela.
Do you know anything else about snakes?
It would be bad luck to talk about that anymore.
Máscaras de animais.
Do you know anything about animal masks?
No, Father. I don't know anything about that.
Vevê.
Do you know anything about veves?
No, Father. I don't know anything about that.
Voodoo negro.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
Oh, yes, Father. It is the wickedest kind. The kind they practice here in New Orleans.
É o que se pratica em New Orleans. Então deve saber de Dambala.
Have you ever heard of Damballa?
No, Father.
No,
I
no,
don't
sir.
know anything about that.
Ogum Badagrum.
Does the name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
No, Father. I don't know anything about that.
Assassinatos voodoo.
What do you know about the voodoo murders?
Voodoo murders? Ha! They are nothing new to me, Father. They happen all the time. I hardly go out anymore. It's too dangerous in the streets. They can get you anywhere, you know. Even here, in this room. But I try not to let them know about me. That's the best way.
What else do you know about the voodoo murders?
Shh! They'll hear you.
Cabri Sancor.
Do you have any idea what Capri Sankar means?
Maybe. I know. I bet you do not know, Father, n'est-ce pas?
No se coma Chile. Bode sem chifres, cabra sem cornos.
It means goat without horns.
Father, you surprised me. You do know what it means. You know what they mean by goat without horns, don't you? A human being. That's right. Slit your throat, cut out your heart. Pure evil murder.
Cortam a garganta e arrancam o coração. Sacrifício humano.
Do you know anything about human sacrifice here in New Orleans?
Well, my great-grandma there could tell stories. She saw it. People say that sort of thing wasn't done in New Orleans. But the real voodoo queens did it. Oh, yes.
As rainhas voodoo faziam, pelo que contava a bisavó dela.
Can you tell me anything else about human sacrifice?
What is to tell? They cut your heart out.
As rainhas do voodoo, as autênticas rainhas do voodoo.
Who were the real voodoo queens?
Well, my great-grandmother told me that Laveau was just a front, a flamboyant decoy. She distracted authorities from the real voodoo queen of New Orleans. It's been the same one for almost 200 years. She's head of a secret voodoo enfant. That's what they call their temples, you know. It's so secret, most of the voodoo people in the city don't even know about it. The real voodoo queen controlled Laveau, gave her a little bit of power, and used her like a puppet.
Laveau era só marionete da verdadeira rainha voodoo que reinou por 200 anos e que tinha um templo secreto em New Orleans e fazia todos esses rituais do mal.
Is there anything else you can remember about the real voodoo queen?
Well, my great-grandmother said the real voodoo queen was the most beautiful woman on earth. She had the most incredible copper-colored skin.
A mulher mais linda do mundo.
Is there anything else you can remember about the real voodoo queen?
Well, they're all brides of Satan. Other than that, I can't think of anything.
Ronfur Voodoo, o templo.
Tell me more about this secret voodoo hound for.
Well, I've never seen it. I wouldn't go near it if you bade me. But it's here in New Orleans, I guarantee it. I hear their drums at night, oh yes. That's why I'm so ill, I tell you, those drums. But we shouldn't talk about it. They'll hear us. It's the devil's work that happens there, I can tell you. I'll show you something. Something secret. You mustn't tell anyone, Father.
I swear on my collar.
Here it is, mon père. A true object of evil if ever there was one.
It radiates something, all right.
It belonged to my great-grandmother. She told my mother that it was a token to gain entrance to the real voodoo ceremonies.
You don't say.
To tell you the truth, I've always felt nervous about having it in the house. You know, evil influence and all.
I can see how you would, yes.
And yet, I could never part with it. It's been in the family for generations. Would you bless it for me, Father? I feel strange asking such a thing of you, but surely you understand.
Bless this bracelet of a snake. Even though its vibes aren't great, let it do nobody harm when they wear it on their arm. Voodoo spirits, go away. Don't come back another day. And now let us pray.
Vamos usar a argila no bracelete, já que ele serve para entrar nos rituais voodoo.
Gabriel has a thought about the clay.
Bless, oh bless this circlet of silver. Take the curse, oh take it, Wilbur.
A lovely blessing, mon père.
Yes, I think it made a lasting impression. Here you go.
I feel so much better now.
Honfur voodoo.
Tell me more about this secret voodoo hound for.
I told you we shouldn't talk about it.
It's so nice of you to invite me in.
But no, mon père. I am always happy to see one of the good fathers.
Do you find the weather to your liking?
It's terribly humid. I only go out in the morning and the evening.
What a delightful little dog you have.
Ah yes, Castro is my boon companion.
Aren't you a member of the Creole Grand Arms?
Why yes, we do much charitable work in the community, you know.
Have you been attending Mass regularly, my child?
Oh yes, father. I attend Mass every morning. Many don't these days, you know.
You're dedicated, madam.
Alguma coisa para mostrar para ela que não seja o molde do bracelete dela própria, nem a fantasia de padre, escamas, véu, vevé. Ela não sabe nada de vevé, né? Ela disse. Mas vamos ver. Não dá para mostrar. Ah, também eu tô clicando no Castro. Madame Casanu, daí dá pra mostrar.
Does this mean anything to you?
No, father, it does not.
Vou mostrar pra velhinha a foto do assassinato, mostrar o Vevé.
Does this mean anything to you?
No, father, it does not.
Acho que só a foto vai ficar chocada. Mais chocada do que com a foto do assassinato ficaria vendo o Mosley.
Madame Casano is paranoid and fearful enough without showing her that graphic photograph.
Ainda bem que a narradora não me deixa fazer bobagem aqui. Chega. Vamos embora então, né?
Au revoir, madame.
Adieu, mon père.
Ver se tem alguma coisa nova para falar com
I'm sorry to bother
o
you.
vigilante.
You got something to say, son?
Honfur voodoo.
Do you know anything about a secret voodoo houndfall?
I don't know nothing about that.
Voodoo
Do
negro.
you know anything about black voodoo?
Black voodoo? I've seen lots of voodoo markings in this cemetery. I've seen graves dug up and stuff you don't want to know about stolen from them. But voodoo? Black voodoo? Sounds like a devil of a distinction, if you ask me.
Do you know anything about black voodoo?
I told you, it's all one to me.
Have you ever heard of Damballa?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Ogum
Does the
Badagru.
name Ogun Badagri mean anything to you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Vevé.
Does this mean anything to you?
Nope.
I don't need to go visit the family tomb today.
New Orleans is famous for it.
No way. Something might answer.
É, não tem outros caminhos para ir aqui. A gente clica. Dá para ir para Tumba Guede, Tumba Laveau, Tumba Right.
The marks are reddish in color and remind Gabriel of crosses. They look like they...
É, não tem inscrição nova nem nada. Só passar na Tumba Guede para ver se ela está lá. Está!
Malia?
Mr. Knight, what are you doing here?
My family's tomb is here.
Mine too.
Unnoticed. Subtle.
Well, Mr. Knight, if there's nothing else,
Don't go. I need to talk to you.
whatever for?
I can't stop thinking about you. I've been in your thoughts too. I can see it in your eyes.
Mr. Knight, you don't know anything about me. I'm not in a position to get involved.
I've said that a million times myself, but this is different. I think we both know we can't fight it. Oh, I can't believe I'm saying this.
I have so many obligations. My family is very traditional. You wouldn't understand.
Hey, I love tradition. I've seen Fiddler on the Roof 100 times.
This isn't a musical, Mr. Knight. We live in different worlds.
Look, I know you got more money than God. Do you think I care? Do you think that's why I'm saying this?
No, I don't.
Why don't you come see my world? I've got a little bookshop, St. George's on Bourbon.
I know.
See, I knew it. You're crazy about me too. Come by tonight. Please. My world isn't so bad.
I'm sorry, but there's no place for someone like you in my life. Not now, not ever.
Damn it. I don't need to go visit the family tomb today.
Não, mas era para segui-la, pomba. É, não vai adiantar entrar, ela já foi embora.
It's getting late. Gabriel decides to go home for the day.
É, acabou o dia, então. Ainda bem que eu já copiei tudo aqui. Agora eu vou testar. Ó, quem tá
Excuse
chegando.
me. I'm going inside.
Oh, I'm afraid St. George's is closed for the day.
I'm not a customer. I'm here to see the owner.
Why don't you just leave your name and number with me, and I'll tell him you stopped by.
Listen, if Gabriel is here, he'll want to see me. Is he? Here?
I really couldn't say for certain, but in the morning...
Gracie, say goodnight.
Diga boa noite, Grace.
You came. I didn't think you would.
I didn't think I would either.
Your eyes. I could show you around a little. It's not much, but...
Please don't. I couldn't focus on much of anything right now.
Yeah, I know. God, what is it about you?
Just shut up and kiss me.
Dia 4. Falei com aquele que tinha o cheiro da morte. Me emprestou seu ouvido ao falar. E cruzes que foram marcadas se tornaram um véu de lágrimas a chorar. Malha indo embora. Não teve pesadelo, né? Quem sabe nem dormiu. Quizás. Quiçá. E agora tem alguém parado na janela ali só olhando. É um drummer sem tambor.
You're not speaking to me this morning?
Don't be silly. I just have nothing to say.
Have it your way. Have you noticed this guy outside the shop?
Yeah, he gives me the creeps. I wish he'd go away.
Did you find out anything about that pattern I gave you?
Yeah, I did find something. I checked the microfiche at the public library. I found an article about a murder in 1810. The newspaper published part of a pattern found around the body. It looks damn close.
You're incredible. All that work.
Forget it.
Bem, já passamos muito de 1 hora de live. Vamos parar por aqui hoje. Salvar o jogo. Início do dia 4. Então é isso. Paramos por aqui com 118 pontos dos 362. Fizemos bastante, até fizemos o final do dia 3. Uma boa parte do dia 3, não estava tão no final. Não, uma parte do... uma boa parte do dia 3 e passamos para o dia 4, foi isso. E na pontuação avançamos bem e na história também, né? A aula do professor lá, na parte que a gente não dormiu, foi bem útil também. Então, paramos por aqui. O Exou Biribó, agradecendo a presença, desejando boa noite. Até amanhã. Agradecendo a presença e a companhia. E, por enquanto... Fui!